A simple waitress moved through the upscale restaurant with quiet dignity, unaware she was being watched. As she served a sophisticated woman with extraordinary kindness, she never noticed the man in the corner, a billionaire husband observing her every move. That single moment of genuine service would shatter the boundaries between their worlds and change her life forever. Eleanor Miller straightened her second-hand uniform, her weathered hands telling the story of 30 years in service. At 53, she carried dignity with every step across the polished floor of the Silver Spoon restaurant, a world away from her struggling neighborhood. "Table 7 needs water, Ellie," barked the manager. "Right away, sir," she replied, voice steady despite the morning rain that had soaked through her shoes during her two-bus commute. Eleanor's troubles, her sister's mounting medical bills, the rent increase notice, remained invisible behind her warm smile. The dreams of her own French bakery had been deferred, but never abandoned. "Just one more year," she whispered, a mantra that had somehow stretched into 5. The restaurant gleamed under crystal chandeliers, serving a clientele who spent more on lunch than Eleanor earned in a week. Yet she moved among them with practiced grace, a woman who had learned that true worth wasn't measured by bank accounts. What Eleanor couldn't know was how quickly fate can turn, or that her extraordinary ordinary kindness was about to catch the attention of a man who had built empires by recognizing value where others saw nothing. The Tuesday lunch rush had begun when Eleanor noticed her, a woman with elegant posture and clothes that whispered wealth rather than shouted it. She sat alone at table 12, an invisible weight burdening her shoulders. "Good afternoon, ma'am. May I get you started with something to drink?" "Just water, please. I'm waiting for someone." Her voice was controlled, but her fingers anxiously traced the tablecloth edge. The restaurant doors swung open, bringing a man whose presence commanded the room. Tall, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit, he moved with quiet confidence, the awaited companion. Eleanor noticed Catherine's subtle stiffening as he seated himself. No kiss, no touch, just a cold nod. "Catherine," he acknowledged. "James," she replied, voice softer now. Eleanor approached with water, moving with invisible grace that came from knowing when to be present and when to disappear. "Are you ready to order?" "She'll have the salmon, grilled, no sauce," James answered before Catherine could speak. "And I'll take the filet, rare." "Actually," Catherine interjected, her voice steadier, "I'd prefer the chicken today." A beat of silence followed, the moment when power shifts, ever so slightly. James's eyes finally lifted, truly seeing Eleanor for the first time. Something changed in his gaze, not softening, but reassessment. As Eleanor collected their menus, she accidentally knocked over Catherine's water glass. In one fluid motion, she intercepted the flow with her serving towel, saving Catherine's skirt. "Oh, I'm so sorry," Eleanor exclaimed. "These things happen," Catherine said with unexpected kindness. "Please don't worry." James watched closely, his expression inscrutable. Instead of the expected impatience, he observed in silence as Eleanor efficiently changed the tablecloth, engaging Catherine in light conversation about the restaurant's history. "You've worked here long?" James asked suddenly. "Nearly 15 years at this establishment, sir, but I've been in service most of my life." Something in his expression shifted. A calculation, a curiosity. What Eleanor didn't see was how James's eyes followed her, or how he pulled out his phone the moment she retreated, typing instructions to find everything about the waitress at table 12. Her simple dignity had set invisible wheels turning in the mind of a man who had built empires by recognizing value where others saw only the ordinary. Eleanor served with the practiced rhythm that had long been her dance. Each plate delivered, each need anticipated before voiced. Yet today, the man at table 12, James, watched her with analytical precision, his attention like a spotlight she hadn't auditioned for. Between courses, Catherine seemed to bloom under her husband's rare, focused attention. It was the silent language of long marriages that Eleanor recognized from years of observation. The small victories, the subtle negotiations of power. "Your chicken, ma'am," Eleanor said, placing Catherine's entree before her with graceful efficiency. As she arranged their sides, Catherine looked up with unexpected warmth. "You've been so kind today. It's made a difficult day much easier." James's eyebrows lifted slightly at this admission, his gaze shifting between his wife and the waitress. "Just doing my job, ma'am," Eleanor replied with genuine modesty. "Though it's easier when you have lovely folks to serve." A flicker of recognition passed across James's face as his phone buzzed discreetly. "Have you always been in the service industry?" he asked, his tone casual yet probing. Eleanor paused, surprised by his interest. Most wealthy patrons saw her as part of the furniture, necessary but invisible. "Most of my life," she acknowledged. "Though I trained as a pastry chef once upon a time. Dreams change, I suppose. Or sometimes just wait their turn." Catherine's eyes brightened. "A pastry chef? What's your specialty?" "French pastries," Eleanor answered, passion breaking through her professional demeanor. "My grandmother was from Normandy, taught me everything about butter and patience." When she returned to clear their plates, Catherine was speaking about their daughter's college graduation. James, however, interrupted mid-sentence. "Eleanor, how long have you had this dream of opening a bakery?" Few patrons bothered to use her name. Fewer still asked personal questions beyond superficial pleasantries. "Nearly 30 years now," she admitted. "Started small when my sister got sick. Needed steady work with benefits more than I needed to chase dreams." "And your sister?" "She's still fighting. 27 years with MS, some days better than others." Catherine's hand moved unconsciously to her heart, genuine empathy crossing her features. "We'd like the check now," James said finally. As Eleanor returned with it, she noticed Catherine reaching for her purse, but James stopped her with a gentle hand on her wrist, the first tender gesture between them. "Thank you for your exceptional service today, Eleanor. You've given us more than just a meal." What Eleanor couldn't know was that James Wilson, founder of Meridian Investments worth billions, rarely thanked service staff by name, or that tomorrow her life would change irrevocably. The following morning broke with the predictability that had defined Eleanor's life for decades. The 5:30 alarm, the careful application of lotion to work-worn hands, the thermos of tea prepared in her small kitchen, where dreams of French pastries had long ago been folded into necessity. Her modest apartment, with its faded floral wallpaper and family photos, told the story of a life lived for others. Her sister Margaret's framed smile beaming from the place of honor on the wall, her medical calendar meticulously updated beside it. "Morning, Maggie," Eleanor whispered. "Another day, another dollar." The familiar creak of the third step, the nod to Mr. Grayson collecting his newspaper, all reliable markers of a life carefully measured within its means. What wasn't routine was the sleek black car parked directly in front of her building. "Ms. Miller? Eleanor Miller?" The professionally dressed woman who emerged held an electronic tablet. "Yes? My name is Rebecca Harrington, executive assistant to James Wilson of Meridian Investments. Mr. Wilson would like to meet with you this morning." Eleanor's mind placed the name, Table 12. "The gentleman from the restaurant yesterday?" Rebecca nodded. "He has a proposition he believes might interest you." Eleanor's first instinct was caution. A lifetime had taught her that unexpected offers often came with hidden costs, particularly for women who looked like her. "I have work. My shift starts in 40 minutes. "That's been arranged. Mr. Wilson spoke with your manager last night. You've been given the day off, with pay." Eleanor studied the business card with the Meridian logo embossed in silver, weighing dignity against curiosity. 20 minutes later, she sat in the luxury sedan, watching the city transform from her working-class neighborhood to the gleaming financial district where people like her typically entered through service entrances. The Meridian building rose like a monument to ambition, its reflective windows both inviting and intimidating. Rebecca escorted her through the marble lobby, past curious glances from staff who clearly wondered what business this older black woman in a waitress uniform could possibly have with James Wilson. Eleanor kept her spine straight, her dignity intact. She had spent a lifetime being underestimated. It no longer had the power to diminish her. James's office occupied the entire top floor, with views that stretched to the horizon. Catherine sat in one of the chairs, her presence unexpected. "Thank you for coming, Ms. Miller," James said, his tone businesslike but not cold. "Not much of an adjustment when you've already arranged it," Eleanor replied, a hint of steel beneath her politeness. The corner of his mouth twitched, almost a smile. "Direct. Good. That will save us both time." What Eleanor couldn't possibly know was that her courage in this moment would soon challenge a system built on seeing people like her as instruments rather than architects of their own destinies. If this story of kindness and unexpected opportunity has touched your heart, we'd love to have you join our community. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications to never miss a moment of inspiration. Now, let's return to our story. Yesterday at lunch, James began, hands clasped before him, my wife and I were celebrating our 25th wedding anniversary. Eleanor nodded, her weathered hands resting lightly in her lap. Hands that had carried plates, wiped tables, and postponed dreams for decades. It was Catherine's choice of restaurant, he continued, not typically my preference. James, Catherine interjected gently, you're circling the point. He acknowledged this with a slight nod. Ms. Miller, I've built my career on recognizing untapped potential in markets, properties, and occasionally in people. Yesterday I observed how you handled our table, and more importantly, how you treated my wife with genuine respect. Eleanor remained silent, her expression neutral, but her heart suddenly racing. Catherine has been telling me for years that I need to diversify our community investment portfolio, focus on small businesses, particularly in underserved neighborhoods. His gaze was penetrating, assessing. I believe you might represent such an opportunity. Rebecca handed him a folder, which he placed on the coffee table. You mentioned your dream of opening a bakery specializing in French pastries. I've had my team put together a proposal. Eleanor didn't reach for it. What exactly are you offering, Mr. Wilson? Full financing for a bakery in the Highland District. Prime location, equipment, staffing support. Everything you'd need to transform your knowledge into a viable business. The Highland District, once neglected, now seeing the first waves of development. Not yet fully gentrified, still home to families who had lived there for generations. Why? The question was simple, but loaded with the weight of a lifetime of doors closed before she could even knock. Because it makes business sense, James replied. The area needs anchor businesses with community ties. But why me? You don't know if I can actually bake or run a business. Catherine leaned forward. Your culinary school records are impressive, Eleanor. Top of your class before you had to withdraw. Eleanor finally opened the folder, detailed business projections, property information, and a contract outlining partnership terms. The figures made her dizzy, more zeros than she had ever imagined handling. This isn't charity, James added. It's an investment with expected returns. Meridian would hold 40% interest. You'd retain 60% ownership and full operational control. Eleanor stood, needing physical movement to process the emotional turbulence. I need time to think. As Rebecca showed Eleanor out, Catherine touched her arm. Yesterday at lunch, James and I weren't just celebrating. We were discussing divorce. Her voice was steady, but quiet. The way you treated me, with such dignity, it made James see me again, really see me, for the first time in years. In the elevator down, Eleanor clutched the folder against her chest. This moment wasn't just about pastries or business opportunities. It was about being truly seen after a lifetime of invisibility. 3 days later, Eleanor stood before the weathered storefront in the Highland District, its windows dusty but intact, its potential visible only to those who knew how to look beyond the surface. Rebecca stood beside her, tablet in hand, awaiting her decision. The morning light caught the wrinkles around Eleanor's eyes, not just age, but testimony to years of pride swallowed, of dreams deferred, of a smile maintained despite circumstances that might have broken a lesser spirit. This is it? Eleanor asked, her voice barely audible above the neighborhood's sounds. Children laughing at the playground across the street, an elderly man sweeping his stoop, the distant rumble of buses carrying people like her to jobs that paid the bills but rarely fed the soul. Yes, Rebecca confirmed. The owner is willing to sell. Mr. Wilson believes the location is ideal, close enough to the developing area to attract new customers, but still firmly rooted in the community. Eleanor pressed her palm against the glass, feeling the vibration of possibility beneath her fingertips. For 30 years, she had moved through the world as if invisible, serving others while her own dreams gathered dust on shelves too high to reach. What happens to the neighborhood if I say yes? She asked, turning to face Rebecca. Does this become another story of people pushed out, of community erased in the name of progress? Rebecca's professional mask slipped, just slightly. That's actually why Catherine insisted on this location. The development agreement includes rent control protections for surrounding blocks, funding for the community center renovation, and local hiring requirements. Eleanor's eyes widened. Catherine insisted? She's been more involved since your meeting. She's taken a seat on the Community Investment Board. Rebecca hesitated. I've worked for the Wilsons for 11 years, Ms. Miller. I've never seen them like this. Something changed after they met you. That evening, Eleanor sat with Margaret in their small living room. The business proposal spread across the coffee table between them. Margaret's hands, twisted by years of illness, rested in her lap. They're offering you everything you ever wanted, Ellie, Margaret said softly. Why the hesitation? Eleanor sighed, the weight of decision heavy on her shoulders. Because gifts from powerful men often come with invisible strings. Because I've spent my whole life serving people like them. Because I'm afraid. Margaret's laugh was gentle but firm. Afraid? You? The woman who's been carrying this family since I got sick? The woman who worked 3 jobs to put me through treatment? Eleanor Miller? Afraid? It's different when it's for me, Eleanor admitted. When the dream is mine. Margaret reached for her sister's hand. Maybe that's exactly why you need to say yes. Maybe it's finally your turn to be seen. The next morning, Eleanor stood in James Wilson's office, her decision made, her spine straight. Before I sign, she said, placing the contract on his desk, I have conditions. James raised an eyebrow, but Eleanor continued, undeterred. First, we partner with the community college's culinary program to create apprenticeships for local students. Second, we establish a foundation to help service workers with medical hardships, named for my sister. And third, she met his gaze directly. I want Catherine on my advisory board, not you. A moment of silence stretched between them, the kind that had intimidated Eleanor her entire working life. But not today. Today, she owned her worth. Finally, James smiled. Not the practiced smile of a businessman closing a deal, but something rarer, more genuine. You don't just want to build a bakery, he observed. You want to build a legacy. I've spent my life watching how wealth moves through the world, Mr. Wilson. I've seen who it touches and who it passes by. If I'm going to have some of it now, I intend to make it touch people who look like me. James extended his hand. Then we have a deal, Ms. Miller. Or should I say, Chef Miller. Eleanor's hand met his, not as servant to master, but as partner to partner. Equal at last. A year later, Eleanor's place stood as a beacon in the Highland District, its warm golden light spilling onto the sidewalk before dawn. The scent of fresh-baked pain au chocolat and crusty baguettes wafted through the neighborhood, drawing a line of customers that represented the full spectrum of the city. Suits from downtown, mingling with local teachers, construction workers chatting with medical students. Eleanor moved with practiced grace behind the counter, her chef's coat crisp and white, her name embroidered in elegant script above her heart. The walls displayed black and white photographs chronicling the neighborhood's rich history, honoring those who had built community long before developers discovered its value. In the corner sat Catherine Wilson, not as the wife of a billionaire, but as a woman rediscovering her own voice. She came every Tuesday morning, notebook open, advising Eleanor on business strategies while Eleanor taught her the patience of perfect lamination. You've created something extraordinary here, Catherine observed, watching as Eleanor directed her staff, all local hires, many from the culinary apprenticeship program she had insisted upon. Eleanor smiled, the lines around her eyes deeper now, but born of joy rather than exhaustion. We created it, she corrected. All of us. Through the window, they could see the renovated community center across the street. Its doors open to after-school programs funded by the Margaret Miller Foundation. The Medical Assistance Fund had already helped 17 service industry workers facing catastrophic healthcare costs. James is coming to the board meeting next week, Catherine mentioned, stirring her coffee. He says the investment returns have exceeded projections by 30%. Eleanor laughed, a free, unfettered sound that would have been unimaginable in her previous life. Tell him it's not about the money. It never was. As the morning rush slowed, Eleanor wiped her hands on her apron and stepped outside, breathing in the crisp air. Her gaze swept the street where she had lived invisibly for decades, the same street where she now stood as a cornerstone. Mr. Grayson, her elderly neighbor, waved from his usual bench. "Got my cinnamon roll today, Ellie. Doctor says I shouldn't, but at my age, joy matters more than cholesterol." Eleanor waved back, her heart full. This was the true measure of success. Not the profitable balance sheets or the write-up in the business section of the newspaper, but the belonging, the community, the dignity of dreams realized. Later that afternoon, as the sunset painted the bakery windows in amber and gold, Eleanor found James Wilson examining the community impact chart displayed near the register. Tracking jobs created, scholarships funded, families stabilized. "You've transformed this corner of the city," he observed, his customary reserve softened by genuine admiration. Eleanor studied him, the powerful man who had seen value in a simple waitress when others had looked through her. "No, Mr. Wilson, this corner of the city transformed me. I just had to be seen first." As she locked up that evening, Eleanor paused at the threshold between her bakery and the street beyond. 1 year ago, she had stood in this exact spot, terrified of stepping into her own light after decades in the shadows of others. Now, she moved with the confidence of a woman who had found her place in the world. Not by changing who she was, but by being finally, completely seen for who she had always been. The message was clear. Sometimes the most powerful act isn't changing yourself to fit the world, but finding those who see the value in exactly who you are. And in that moment of being truly seen, everything can change. Not just one life, but an entire community bound together by the simple, revolutionary act of recognizing each other's humanity. For Eleanor Miller, the simple waitress who caught a billionaire's eye, the journey wasn't about becoming someone new, but about the world finally catching up to who she had always been. A woman of extraordinary ordinary grace, whose dignity had always been her truest wealth. As Eleanor's story reminds us, true recognition of another's dignity can transform not just one life, but an entire community. This wasn't just a tale about a waitress and a billionaire. It was about how we all deserve to be truly seen. We'd love to hear from you in the comments below. What part of Eleanor's journey touched your heart the most? And where are you watching from today? Whether you're from sunny Florida or the Pacific Northwest, your presence here means the world to us. If Eleanor's story resonated with you, please tap that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss our weekly stories of courage and transformation. And if you know someone who could use this message of hope, share this video with them. Remember, friends, in a world that rushes by without noticing, taking the time to truly see each other might be our most profound gift. From our family to yours, thank you for being part of our community of storytellers and believers in human possibility.